And there we have it, our turret command module is finally complete. Hello guys, it's Alan the Collector, and for this review we're going to be taking a look at the Deluxe Turret Command Module Upgrade Kit for the Jungle Phalanx by Gridiron Studios. Now it's been about a month since Gridiron Studios delivered the Jungle Phalanx, their take on the Striker APC popularized by the US military. And while this armored vehicle is a defensive powerhouse that's a great option for collectors who love large vehicles that can transport multiple figures, even with the uppers and mounted weapons, it's a bit lacking in the firepower department. So Gridiron Studios recognized that and said, boom, you looking for this? And then I was like,
yep.
And now, fresh from the labs of the Gridiron Studios mechanized division, we have the first of our upgrade kits that'll give our Phalanx a big old turret with a command station to boot. There's some really interesting engineering that'll really up the fun factor of the Phalanx, plus it's just as detailed as well. So how about we go ahead and break this thing down to its basic components and see what's included. So for starters, we have a cylindrical command module with an articulated interface, a turret with a removable roof, a tank gun barrel, a radio antenna, a light saw machine gun, a tow missile launching pod with 2 removable tow missiles, and a brand new articulated camera upper. Now first up, we have the articulated command module. This is essentially going to act as the main piloting station for the turret. Now when we get a little bit closer, of course there's going to be evidence of some layering as this is a 3D printed piece. We have a few obvious spots right here towards the bottom of the main interface, as well as on the underside of this ring, but for the most part this thing is incredibly smooth. All the details came out pretty sharp. I like this grading pattern that we're getting on the back, and there's this light dry brushing that's been applied to give it a real weathered look. But of course the real detail is packed in on the front. This interface here is articulated. It just swings on a hinge, and you can see all these computerized components. We get different areas that have been 3D printed in black to indicate different screens, buttons, or dials. And then we have other areas like these screens right here that have been painted green to give the idea that there's other interfaces going on here. And if you're like me, you can really let your imagination run wild with all the different information that might be displayed on these screens. With the main interface open, we can get a closer look at where the operator would be sitting. It's a seat not unlike the one that we got for the driver's seat of the Phalanx, however, this is just fixed in position. It's 3D printed out of a black resin, and then we get some brown paint for what's either a wood pattern or maybe some padding to make for a more comfortable seat. When we take a closer look at the floor of the command module, we see this tread plate pattern. We're getting some silver dry brushing just to help give it a nice weathered look. We also get some panel line and some tech details here, as well as some riveting details as we get to this panel right beneath the control stick. This control stick is a separate piece, but be careful because once you snap it in place, it's not going to want to come out. Behind that, we get a raised control panel with more venting, buttons, dials, and other details to really bring this thing to life. I'm digging the blue paint that we're getting for the screen. I think this section here is also supposed to be a screen, but it's not painted. Going back to the middle level, we also get this ammo can that's been 3D printed as part of the main sculpt, which, if you ask me, I'm a little bummed about. As a cost-saving measure, I get it, but I wouldn't have minded if this was a blank space so that I could put whatever I wanted right here. Moving on to the top view of the command module, we get a second seat for a 6-inch figure. This seat is intended for the commander's position of the turret, and we don't have to worry about our 6-inch figure's feet dangling when we have them seated inside, because when we close the main interface, you'll notice that the top of the computers have more of that tread plate pattern. That's where the feet of your 6-inch figure are supposed to rest. Below that, to the right of the control stick, we get another raised area that features more of that tread plate pattern. That's for the loader's position of the turret. It's a standing position, and it'll make a lot more sense once we bring in the second section of this turret, which happens to be the main turret itself.
They got a tank.
And man, do I dig the details that we're getting here. This reminds me of the top of an Abrams, and it has a lot of the 3D printed details that we had on the middle section of the Phalanx. As you can see, it's mainly 3D printed out of a green resin, and then we get sections that have been outlined with the black resin just to bring out the detail of those panel lines, the bolting, the riveting. You know what to expect at this point. We have angled armor plating designed to better deflect incoming enemy fire. We also get this hoop that we can attach chains or maybe other weapons to for future upgrades. And then there's 2 sections here where we can mount different weapons. Just like the Phalanx, we have 2 functional hatches that are on hinges. This one's for the loader, and then this one for the commander. We get a decent amount of detail on the underside. We also have an area for a modular adapter, which should be compatible with just about everything that uses this system. And then finally, when we get to the back section, we get this basket. You can use it to store different accessories that you might have. We have another 3D printed ammo box here in the corner. We get some black 3D printing to fill in those holes for the porting on the bottom, and then we get an area that we can attach an antenna to. This area here looks like it's intended for storage, but it doesn't actually function. And then if you watch my review of the Phalanx, then this black piece right here should be very familiar to you guys. Just like the original release, Gridiron Studios is getting into light up features, and they've incorporated that same function into the main turret here. But first, I want to remove the roof. It's a pretty snug fit. What you want to do is just reach out from the bottom and push on this flat part to pop it off. But as you can see, we have the bulb from that light. All we have to do is take this black tab and remove it. And just like we did on the Phalanx, we're just going to give this top section a twist. And once you do, that bulb lights up red.
Everything is red. Everything I see is red.
And they put this bulb in a really great spot too. When we go back to the main section of the turret, you can see the Gridiron Studios logo here. It came out incredibly sharp. And so if we were to reattach it, you can see that the bulb is strategically placed right over it. So when you light it up, it'll illuminate the logo.
So good.
I want to show you some of the other details on the inside of this turret. When we turn it around, and you can see another area with the screen, some buttons, some dials. On the other side, we get another panel that could probably show similar details if you wanted. And then when we get back to the midsection, you can see this area here. It looks like it could probably open up so that you could load the main cannon of the turret. And then to the right of that, we get an area for our light machine gun. And since we're on the topic of weapons, how about we attach this turret to the command module and arm everything up? When we go to the underside of the turret, you're going to locate these gaps. They're keyed so that they'll match the top of the command module. And when we go to the top, you'll also notice this arrow right here that's pointing forward. That's indicated where the front of the turret should be positioned. So all we have to do is line those sections up. And it's a really snug fit. It's not going anywhere. So first up, we have our SAW machine gun. It stands for Squad Automatic Weapon. Now, while you could give this weapon to your 6-inch figures, it doesn't have a magazine, so it can't actually fire. However, you could take the magazine that comes with that light machine gun and then attach it all the same. Which is a pretty nice touch. But this SAW machine gun here is specifically designed to be compatible with this turret. You'll find this opening here where it's able to slide into. Take special note of these grooves where the handle of the gun is supposed to fit. All we got to do is line everything up and then slide it right in. Make sure that handle catches that groove. And now you can give your enemies the business. Now, while this SAW machine gun is intended for close quarters combat, we have a whole turret here that's designed for long range. So I think it's time we bring in the tank cannon. It's just under 6 inches long, and it's been 3D printed out of a black resin. We have some grooves that have been incorporated into the barrel of the design, and then when we get to the tip of the cannon, we get some nice silver dry brushing to help bring out that porting detail as if heat is just coming off of this thing. When we get to the back, we get this cone peg that might look a little familiar to you eagle-eyed viewers. More on that in a bit, but in any event, it's designed so that it'll snap right into the front of the turret. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, yes, the turret can tilt up and down.
That's a relief.
It wasn't clearly obvious from the advertising on Gridiron Studios' website, but trust me, this thing is able to go really far up, and it'll hold its position no matter what angle you put it at. But if you're still looking for a little more firepower, we have this missile pod for our TOW missiles. Now, TOW stands for Tube Launched, Optically Tracked, and Wire Guided. It's a system for anti-tank guided missiles that are fired from a tube which are tracked visually with the help of a wire connection to the launcher.
Nerd alert! Nerd alert!
This is basically your real-world weaponized delete button. It has a robust blocky frame that's been 3D printed out of that same military green color. We also have some panel lines and some riveting details, and let's not forget the grating detail that we're getting on the back. As you can see, it has a hinge and a circular peg hole, so this thing will be able to articulate in a few different ways, and when you move it from the cover, you can clearly see the 2 hollow tube launchers inside. I like the black paint that we're getting for the opening and the Reese's peanut butter cup-like pattern going down half of the tube on the inside to give it a real military feel. And that, of course, is so that it can grip the 2 TOW missiles that it comes included with. They're green cylindrical tube with bands of orange and silver, and some touches of silver for the ring and the missile tip on the inside. And as cool as that sculpt is, unfortunately the actual missiles on the inside aren't removable. Fortunately, these tubes are still able to be loaded into the back of the launcher like so, and it fits like a glove. Unfortunately though, because of the weight of this missile pod, it will get a little bit droopy on you if you're not careful. I do wish Gridiron Studios worked on the tolerances of that hinge, but as long as you're not roughhousing, it should stay up well enough. Next up, we have this articulated camera upper. It's got all the detail you might expect, and I'm really digging the 2 camera lenses we get on the front, along with these red and black details that we're getting on either side of them. It gives the impression that they could switch between a few different vision modes. I also dig how on the back we have a couple pairs of peg holes that are compatible with the hoses that came with our mech rider, and you can actually fit them in to give this camera much more of an analog feel. But of course, the main idea is to attach it to the main adapter system. And in true Gridiron Studios fashion, it can rotate 360 degrees and tilt up and down. Very cool. And finally, that just leaves us with the radio antenna. It's very similar to the one that we got on the Failins, only this one is much shorter and is completely 3D printed. There's no metal, and I kind of like that a little bit more. Only because I don't have to bend it back straight whenever I accidentally bend it out of shape. The details on it are pretty sharp, and it has a diamond peg that will plug into the back of our turret. But before we put the roof back on this thing, we're going to need to find some capable soldiers to pilot it. And I think I found just the men for the job. We've got Sergeant Slaughter, Beachhead, and General Hawk. Now, putting Sergeant Slaughter and General Hawk down for now, we're going to allow Beachhead to be the main driver of the command module. All we got to do is open the module up, get Beachhead in a seated position, and then put him in place. It's going to be a snug fit because of all his armor, but with the character his size, it's very doable. From here, we're going to put the roof back on, open up our hatches, and then place Sergeant Slaughter down the loader's hatch, taking special care to make sure his feet land on that raised platform. There we go, he's loaded in place, and yes, his feet are making contact. Now we're going to get General Hawk in a seated position. And while it is a tight fit in this position, he will be able to slide down the hatch. And then give his body a twist. Now you'll want to do that to ensure to the best of your ability that General Hawk's feet are in fact on top of that interface. And while we're at it, how about we switch out Hawk's helmet for this bonus tanker helmet that came included with every early bird purchase of the command turret. And the details on it are not only pretty sharp, but I happen to think it looks a little bit better than what Hawk currently has on. And there we have it, our turret command module is finally complete. This is a wonderful upgrade from Gridiron Studios, but as good as it looks, you really don't want to buy this thing alone. It needs to be paired with the Phalanx. Perfect, just in time. The first thing that we're going to want to do is get rid of the middle roof section of the Phalanx. Now, while all of the smaller seats can remain up or down when combining the turret, these longer seats in the middle, those have to be up. Because obviously when we put the turret in, it's going to be occupying that middle space. From here, it's just a simple matter of making sure that everything's lined up. What you're going to want to do is take the base of the command module, and you'll notice that there are 3 tabs sticking out around the circle. These tabs are going to interlock with the midsection of the Phalanx. So when we bring them a little bit closer, what you're going to do is line up these tabs with the gaps on the Phalanx. And if you line it up right, it should stay in place. You may have noticed that the turret didn't sink into the hull of the Phalanx, and that's because Gridiron Studios designed this with several interlocking features. So once you have those tabs in place, what you're going to want to do is turn the turret clockwise or counterclockwise depending on where the front is facing. In this case, with the turret in the 11 o'clock position, we're going to want to turn it clockwise to noon. And once you do, you'll notice it drop. If you're like me, that first drop is going to catch you off guard, so be sure that you have a really good grip on the command module so that you don't accidentally break it if it drops too hard. But the command module is not locked in place just yet. You'll notice that that tab is still clinging on the top of the Phalanx, as once we have it in the 12 o'clock position, we're going to turn it back to the 11 o'clock position so that those tabs fall into place. And once that turret's in position, you basically have 360 degrees of motion. I really like the look of the command station occupying the middle section of the Phalanx, but to me the coolest part is that when you articulate the turret up top, it actually rotates that command station in every direction, giving you a real sense of functionality and playability. And in low light settings,
what's going on in there? That light!
That light up feature is going to be especially fun to mess around with. But the coolest part is that even with the space that the command module takes up, there's still plenty of seating to utilize. You still have plenty of room for 4 more troopers. You can see that there's 2 Night Force troopers hanging out in the back. That's a total of 10 troopers you can now fit inside this upgraded Phalanx.
This thing is wicked.
And while we have the command module raised, I want to quickly take a look at what Gridiron Studios is calling the exploded view. This is another cool option if you want to show off your turret without worrying about the lighting conditions or the confined space on the inside. Because of that interlocking mechanism, you won't be able to rotate it as freely as when it's lowered, because eventually as you turn it, it is going to want to drop down. And I have to say, even though it's not the way I'm going to display it, it is cool that we have this option if we want it. Instead, I'd rather just fill this thing out with more weapons. Because this roof piece from the Phalanx is now freed up, we can use this mounted heavy machine gun. So because of its size, I'm going to give it to General Hawk. He's not going to have the greatest reach in this position, but he seems more than capable. And while we could use this light machine gun from the Phalanx, I wouldn't want to insult Sergeant Slaughter with such a wimpy weapon, so how about we go ahead and give him another heavy machine gun with gun shields that came with our Green Rider mech. But as cool as this exploded view looks, it does leave our heroes a bit exposed. Yeah, I was afraid that might happen, so Beachhead, how about we go ahead and lower this thing and prepare for battle. Alright Beachhead, show me what we got. Give me a lock. And fire when ready. Great work guys, but unfortunately, we drew a little bit of attention to ourselves. So why don't we go ahead and finish the job? America, yeah! Looks like we did a number on these guys. Now I wanted to do a quick comparison between these two vehicles. Obviously, I love the HISS tank. I think it's one of the best designed G.I. Joe classified vehicles to date. However, my main gripe is that it doesn't carry very many figures.
It's really a shame.
You can maybe get 2 or 3 extra figures inside, but they really don't have anywhere else to sit aside from the one designated position. And that's what makes the Phalanx such a strong release, because you can essentially fit a whole squad of figures inside. And even with the command module in place, that's only the tip of the iceberg. So why don't we make a little room? During my last video, I showed off how the Phalanx would fit multiple Gridiron Studios drones, and while the module does take up quite a bit of space, you're still going to be able to fit at least one of nearly every single drone type in the Gridiron Studios library, especially if it's the Fat Boy, or in this case, the Earl. And the same is true for mini drones like the Sparrow. And of course, you're going to be able to swap out that camera upper for other uppers like the jump station. For other uppers you might have in your collection in case you want to give the Phalanx a little more firepower. The same is going to be true for mountable weapons. Alright, Hawk says that's enough. And if you're looking for more options, be sure to check out my original review of the Phalanx. But while those options are cool, what if I told you had a few more still?
Say what?
You see, there's a reason why I'm bringing in the coil mech. Remember how I mentioned that the cone peg for this gun turret looked a little familiar? Well, that's because it happens to be the same shape as the peg for the weapon attachments for our coil mech. You see, here we have our flamethrower, our chain gun, and our claw attachment, and as you can see, all of the pegs are exactly the same shape, which means that we can do some swapping here. Let's start with the chain gun. I highly doubt it's as powerful as a turret, but if you wanted that look, it's certainly an option. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really digging the look of the flamethrower. It's totally impractical, but it is an option if you want it. And then of course there's the claw. This is probably the most impractical of all the different options we have, but it does inspire my imagination the most. Because with a little bit of imagination, you could pretend this is a futuristic energy projectile, some sort of drilling tool, or maybe even a military-grade high-powered harpoon. Now, while the weapon attachments for the coil mech are compatible with the turret, it doesn't go the other way around. This gun cannon, unfortunately, won't fit on our coil mech. There's just too much armor in the way, unfortunately. Even though it can't peg in, there is enough length in that cone that it can rest inside the peg hole. But I would recommend bringing in this green battle-ready mech rider for one more surprise swap. And for that, we're gonna need our tow missile pod. You see, when I got this piece in hand, it got me thinking, how many other Gridiron Studios products have pegs like this? Well, as it turned out, quite a few. That's why I brought in this mech rider. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this to your figures unless you're really comfortable, but I realized that these missile pods are in fact removable, which means they're also compatible with our tow missile pod.
What?
I'm really digging the asymmetry we have going on here. And it also means you can take that spare missile pod and attach it to our turret. Now, because of its shape, it doesn't have nearly the same amount of articulation as our tow missiles, but you do also have that option. And because we do have this leftover piece of the Phalanx, what I like to do is use it as a diorama piece for an underground bunker. If we get rid of some of the guns and the uppers, and then bring in our camera upper, I think it could really sell the look. Especially if Gridiron Studios comes out with an upgrade piece to make this a little bit more robust. And there you have it. Those are all the surprise swaps that I found that you could do with the turret upgrade. Now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Gridiron.
And as for size comparisons, the turret upgrade by itself is about 11 inches tall, about the same height as the Phalanx. And when you combine the two and it's not in the exploded view, it only adds about an extra 1.5 inches in height. And with it being in the 1/12 scale, it's going to look great next to 6-inch figures like the Power Rangers Lightning Collection SPD B Squad Ranger, Shadow Ranger, and Omega Ranger by Hasbro. I think it's also going to look great next to some of Earth's mightiest heroes from the Marvel Legends Avengers line. Here's how he's going to look next to various Cobra Army builders from the G.I. Joe Classified line. And I think it's going to scale decently enough with 7-inch figures like the McFarlane Toys Crime Syndicate figures from the DC Multiverse line. Here's how it looks next to some Legion builders from the Cosmic Allegiance line, as well as some Figure Obscura figures from Four Horsemen Studios. I think it'll be fun to pair next to some cartoon TMNT figures by NECA. And getting into some larger scale vehicles, you can see just how it stacks up next to a couple of Robo Skulls and their Land Speeders by Skeletron. You can see just how much bigger it is than the G.I. Joe Classified HasLab His Tank and Dragonfly. It absolutely dwarfs smaller vehicle than the G.I. Joe Classified line. Here's how it looks next to the Batmo Beast by McFarlane Toys, as well as the Tumbler from their Dark Knight Rises line. And here's how it looks next to some of my favorite large-scale NECA figures like the Blade Fighter from the NECA Predator Kenner line, the Aliens Power Loader, and Ed 209 from RoboCop. You can see just how much bigger it is than the Vamp with the Gridiron Studios Ground Pounder upgrade, as well as the standard Hound release. And just look how big it is compared to some of the other drones and mechs from the Gridiron Studio library. And finally, here's how it looks under black light. And yep, you guessed it, no effect. Now as for my final thoughts, the Gridiron Studios Turret Command Module is a very solid upgrade. I really enjoyed the Phalanx, and the turret upgrade really takes it up a notch, essentially turning your armored personal carrier into your very own Gridiron Studios style tank. I really dig the articulation on the turret itself, as well as the cannon and the tow missiles, and the addition of the command station not only provides some extra designated seating for our figures, but it comes with its own light up feature that's just as good as the one that came on the Phalanx. The exploded view of the turret is also a really nice addition by Gridiron Studios. And of course, this thing has modularity for days, and so if you have a lot of figures in the Gridiron Studio library, I think you're going to be rewarded with all the different options you have to really make this thing your own. But this upgrade is not perfect. I'm not a fan of the loose tolerances on the tow missiles, and while it wasn't much of an issue for me, getting figures inside the commander's position of the turret might prove difficult, in addition to the learning curve that comes with adjusting the turret itself. And then of course there's also the price. This thing is going to set you back $150, and when the original figure is already $400, that's not an easy pill to swallow. So if you're looking for my recommendation, I would say this is a pass if you don't already have the Phalanx. You could buy it on its own, but it wouldn't be nearly as much fun without the main vehicle it's intended to work with. But if you already have the Phalanx and you're a fan, then this purchase is a no-brainer. And considering that this is just the first of many upgrades that we're going to be getting with the Phalanx, I think the Phalanx is definitely going to be a vehicle that's going to have a lot of long-term value in it. So if you can squeeze that $150 price tag, I don't think you'll be disappointed with this release. But that'll do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch the whole thing. It turned out a bit longer than I was planning, but there were so many different options and details to dig into, I couldn't help myself, and I really wanted to show everything off. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, be sure to like, comment, and share this video with others, especially if you found it entertaining or informative. It helps out more than you know. The support you guys have been giving me lately has been very appreciated. In any case, be sure to stick around for a gallery at the end, and as always, collect responsibly.